Silent Night, Deadly Night, 1984. The film begins with a tragedy that forever changes the life of a boy named Billy. On Christmas Eve, his family stops on the road, where they encounter a man dressed as Santa Claus. This man turns out to be a criminal. He brutally murders Billy's parents right in front of him. Christmas, a symbol of joy and security, becomes a source of horror in the child's mind. Billy is sent to a Catholic orphanage. Instead of support, he receives harsh discipline and fanatical religious education. The nuns instill in the children that any misdemeanor is a sin, and sin must be punished. These ideas are deeply ingrained in Billy's psyche, who never recovered from his childhood trauma. As an adult, Billy gets a job at a toy store. With Christmas approaching, he is forced to wear a Santa suit. This becomes the final trigger. Old memories, suppressed emotions, and the religious idea of punishment merge together. Billy snaps and starts killing people he considers bad, promiscuous, cruel, hypocritical. The main villain is Billy himself. He does not consider himself a monster. He is convinced that he is carrying out the right mission. His madness logically stems from trauma, violence, and distorted morality. The ending is tragic. Billy dies, believing to the end that he was right. To All a Good Night, 1980. The film tells the story of a group of teenagers who stay at a boarding school for the Christmas holidays. The atmosphere quickly changes when, one by one, they begin to die at the hands of a killer dressed as Santa Claus. Gradually, a tragic past involving bullying and an accident that occurred years earlier is revealed. The murders turn out to be an act of revenge, carefully planned and postponed until a symbolic date, Christmas. The main villain is the result of long-held hatred. The holiday here serves not as a backdrop, but as a tool of mockery. A time of joy turns into a time of reckoning. Better Watch Out, 2016. Better Watch Out. The plot begins like a classic Christmas thriller. A teenager stays home with a babysitter while his parents are away. The house is decorated. There is snow outside the window, and Christmas movies are playing on TV. Soon, it seems that the house is being attacked by burglars. But gradually it becomes clear that the real threat is inside the house. The illusion of victimhood collapses, and the story turns into a psychological nightmare where manipulation, cruelty, and a twisted sense of control come to the fore. The main villain is not a monster or a demon, but a child who has lost his empathy. His evil is frightening in its reality. It is not connected with myths. It is born of selfishness, permissiveness, and a lack of boundaries. Black Christmas. The action takes place in a women's dormitory during the Christmas holidays. The girls are preparing for the holiday, discussing plans, arguing, living their normal lives. Soon, strange phone calls begin to ring in the house. On the other end of the line are incoherent screams, moans, strange voices, and threats. It's scary, but at first it seems like just a sick joke. One of the students disappears, then another. Gradually, it becomes clear that there is a killer in the house. He does not attack openly or chase his victims. He watches, waits, and acts quietly and cold-bloodedly. The police do not take the threat seriously, considering the calls to be ordinary hooliganism. Gradually, the most terrifying detail emerges. The killer has been inside the house all along, hiding in the attic. He uses the house phone to call his victims, remaining unnoticed. His motives remain unclear, especially in the 1974 version. He does not explain himself or reveal his past. The main villain here is an anonymous, faceless evil. His origins are unimportant and not fully revealed, which makes the story particularly frightening. The ending leaves the feeling of an unfinished nightmare. Evil has not been completely destroyed and may continue to exist. Christmas Evil, 1980. The film tells the story of Harry Stedling, a man whose life has been linked to the image of Santa Claus since childhood. At a young age, he witnesses a traumatic scene. His father, dressed as Santa, behaves in a sexually inappropriate manner. For Harry, this destroys the image of the holiday, but at the same time makes Santa something obsessively important. As an adult, Harry lives a reclusive and lonely life. He works in a toy factory, secretly watches children, and keeps lists of good and bad kids. He sees the world around him as corrupt, people as hypocritical, and Christmas as a lost idea that needs to be saved. Gradually, Harry begins to think of himself as the real Santa. He puts on his costume and goes out on Christmas Eve to reward the good and severely punish the bad. His actions become increasingly violent, but in his mind, these are not crimes, but the fulfillment of a sacred role. The main villain is Harry, but the film shows him not as a caricatured maniac, but as a tragic figure. He is born out of loneliness, trauma, and complete detachment from reality. The film's ending is deliberately strange and surreal, leaving the viewer in doubt as to what was reality and what was the fruit of madness. Krampus, 2015. The story begins with an ordinary family gathered for Christmas. Instead of warmth and joy, the house is filled with irritation, conflict, and fatigue. The holiday is perceived as a formality. A little boy, disappointed by the behavior of adults, loses faith in Christmas and, in despair, tears up his letter to Santa. This act awakens Krampus, a demonic creature from European folklore, the antithesis of Santa Claus. With him comes a snowstorm that cuts the house off from the outside world. Ominous creatures begin to appear around them, demonic toys and monsters that kidnap family members one by one. Krampus doesn't just kill, he punishes. He takes those who have lost the spirit of the holiday, those who are mired in malice and selfishness. Resistance is futile. Evil is ancient, stronger, and defies logic. In the end, it becomes clear that there was no salvation. Even those who survived remained prisoners of Krampus. The main villain here is not a person, but the embodiment of retribution brought about by the people themselves. Mercy Christmas, 2017. The film begins with the story of a lonely man named Michael, who feels out of place in the world of family holidays. On Christmas Eve, he accepts an invitation from a seemingly friendly family to spend the holiday with them. At first, everything seems cozy. The house is warm, the table is set, and the hosts are welcoming. However, the atmosphere gradually becomes disturbing. The family's behavior becomes strange. Their conversations take on sinister overtones, and Michael begins to realize that he is trapped. It turns out that the family are cannibals. For them, Christmas is a traditional holiday during which they kidnap and kill people, turning them into a holiday meal. They do not hide their cruelty and do not consider themselves evil for them. It is a family tradition. The main villains are all members of the family. They are not traumatized or obsessed with mysticism. Their evil is mundane and conscious. The film's finale turns into a bloody struggle for survival, where the boundaries between victim and predator are blurred. Silent Night, 2012. Remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night. The action takes place in a small town on Christmas Eve. Festive bustle, lights, smiles, everything looks familiar and safe. But a killer dressed as Santa Claus appears in town and begins to methodically and brutally kill people. Gradually, the villain's past is revealed. As a child, he witnessed the brutal murder of his parents during a Christmas robbery. The trauma went untreated, and his sense of injustice turned into rage. As an adult, he decides that the world is rotten and that Christmas is the perfect time for cleansing. The main villain here is a man who has turned his personal pain into an ideology. He doesn't just kill, he takes revenge on the whole world, using the symbol of the holiday as a mockery of society. A Christmas Horror Story, 2015. A Christmas Horror Story. The film consists of several intertwining stories that take place on one Christmas night in a small town. In one storyline, parents encounter something sinister in the attic of their own home, where elves turn out to be demonic creatures. In another, a schoolgirl brings home a cursed Christmas tree, after which her family encounters an ancient evil. The third story involves a radio host who reports on mass murders taking place in the city. The climax is devoted to Santa Claus, who engages in a bloody battle with hordes of monsters. Evil in the film has many faces: ancient demons, curses, and Christmas Eve itself, when the line between myth and reality becomes blurred. The film shows that the holiday may not be a time of salvation, but a moment when evil comes to the surface. Rare Exports, A Christmas Tale, 2010. A rare export commodity. The story takes place in Finnish Lapland, where a group of scientists discovers an ancient burial site linked to the legend of Santa Claus. But this Santa is not a kind old man, but a primitive, cruel creature who kidnaps and punishes children. After the excavations, children begin to disappear in the area, and adult men behave more and more strangely. Gradually, it becomes clear that something much more ancient and dangerous than just a myth has been found. The main villain is the original Santa, a pagan creature that existed long before the commercial image of the holiday. The film turns the Christmas fairy tale into a dark legend about how the kind face of the holiday is just a mask hiding an ancient fear.